Hello, Whiskey Wednesday fans. Thank you so much for tuning in. I just wanted to kind of give you an update prior to starting of the video that due to the length of the information that the guest provided this week, I'm going to be splitting up into two parts. This will be part one. Next will be part two. So thank you so much for understanding, but I did not want to cut out any of his story just to make it shorter and decided to make it two 40-minute episodes back to back. So thank you so much and enjoy. Hello, everyone. This is Ken Boone. This is Whiskey Wednesday Weekly. Thank you for tuning in. This week we have a guest that I'm excited about. He's actually a super trainer with a internationally known company, Beachbody. If you haven't heard from that, look it up. You'll know about it real quick. It's one of the largest online training tools with, I don't know how many trainers, but Joel is certainly one of the super trainers with 3 of the most successful programs on that video app now. And I've done all 3 of his, so I've enjoyed listening to him in my living room. And so it's an honor to actually have him here today, agreeing to do this Whiskey Wednesday Weekly episode. So with that being said, say hi to Joel Freeman real quick. How you doing, Joel?
What's up, buddy? Hey, man, you had me at whiskey. I couldn't say no to this.
I appreciate that. I appreciate that. So tonight we're going to get a little bit of story from Joel. Now, I don't personally know Joel's story. I think we spent a few minutes via Zoom a few days ago just to kind of get a general consensus. We talked about the negative creates the positive the other day. And without negatives, we feel like everyone would just kind of think life is easy, right? So we're just here to find out a little bit about you. I'd love to hear your backstory, and let's get right into it. So I know that you originally told me you were from Texas. And obviously I've seen you go back there. I think you just went back like a couple weeks, a month ago, maybe. Is that correct?
Yeah. Well, originally from California. So all of my family, except for my mom, lives in California. Parents split early on. I think I might have even been less than a year old. And so then mom moved to Texas eventually, and that's how I ended up in Texas. So for the better part of my life, I think about around 4 or 5 is when I moved out there with her. So from that point, and ended up graduating high school from there, went to college there as well. So it's, yeah, definitely was raised in Texas. But I love it. I don't know if I can say it's my home, because to me, home is where I live now. Right. So and I live in LA. So that's, but I do go back to Texas because I have friends in Texas outside of Dallas.
Nice. Okay.
Yeah.
So knowing that, obviously that's where your childhood was then. So really, let's get right into that and tell me, is there any, I guess, we all have different times in our lives when there's these moments. I mean, did you play sports, when you were young, not high school, but let's go into like when you were young, did you play sports through high school? Were there any defining moments that you realized? For me, it was a wrestler. I had a great coach, and I realized that you can kind of push through walls that you don't realize So take us a little bit through some of the things that maybe make you who you are today that actually affected you from your childhood, maybe your mom or whoever taught you things.
Yeah, sure. So from childhood standpoint, it was interesting because I grew up in Texas, in a small town in West Texas, just outside Odessa. The town itself had 7,000 people. So very, very podunky, if you will, in a lot of respects. But when you look back on it now, it was a great place to grow up because it was one of those things where I had that ultimate freedom to get on my bike and just disappear for the day. Like, okay, mom, I'm going to my friend's house. Bye. And you come home when the street lights come on. Right. And there's always these memes you see around, but like the meme was everyone knew where everyone was at based on the amount of bikes in the front yard. Like that's how you knew whose house that you were at or where all your friends were. And this is when we still had to memorize phone numbers. And call around and do all this stuff. And I was never a video game guy. I didn't have video games really in the house. So my friends had some, but I just never got into it. So I was always very active, riding my bike, playing football, all those different things, and played sports a little bit, not a lot. In terms of team sports and organized sports, I played baseball. I did play baseball and football for a little bit. Those are my 2 sports that I love. But I didn't play them in high school. It was kind of part of a religious thing with my mom. She didn't want me doing it. So, you got to do what your parents want growing up. So, I was always active. That was the biggest thing. And so for me, probably what I could take the most out of that part of my life growing up in Texas was just the activity level and not ever being okay to just sit around. I mean, I had my days where I'll sit and watch movies, of course, but like daily sitting and playing video games all day long, I just can't even fathom it. So there's no way. So I definitely got that out of growing up and being an active child, but then also just and then growing up in Texas, my mom was very old school in the way of chivalry, and made me hold open the door for her when I was like 6. I could barely even hold the door open, but she taught me young on that one. So
Great.
but that and how to talk to people and how to treat people and how to, that's why I do really enjoy going back to Texas when I go to see my buddies out there, because there's that chivalry and that camaraderie and just overall good, in a lot of respects, good human beings and good human nature out there, where if you make eye contact with someone, there's a smile, there's a hi, there's a howdy. That doesn't happen here in LA. People don't make eye contact, and so it's weird. Yeah. So, but yeah, childhood was just, I was active, was the active skinny kid.
Yeah. So my timer went off. So let's start with
Okay.
proper 12. Let's do a shot of one that you haven't had.
All right. So I got mine. So yeah, the proper 12. So you brought this one up, and obviously we've all heard about it.
It's Conor McGregor's brand. Yep.
Right. So
Which I'm sure you're, obviously being an MMA fan and a boxer, you probably know that story a little.
yeah. Yeah. So, I do like a good Irish whiskey. A majority of the whiskeys that I have they tend to be Tennessee or Kentucky. I don't have a lot of Irish whiskeys in my collection, but yeah, I'm good with it.
Man, we are so similar. Here we go. Bottoms up.
Cheers.
That was actually pretty smooth.
That is smooth. That is smooth. I do like that one. I was expecting a little bit more of almost like a peatiness to it. Being from Ireland, I thought I'd have that, but that's definitely a very smooth blend.
Yeah. He's like, all right, I'm glad we tried that.
I'm okay with it. I like it.
Oh man,
when celebrities come out with alcohols, you never know.
Right.
And you never know if it's going to be something they're just slapping their name on it, or if they're actually put the thought and effort into it. I don't know the story of him in terms of being a part of this whiskey. I've seen a lot of the background with Dwayne Johnson and his Terramana tequila. And it's really good. So I really like that. But yeah, this one is, it even says rich and smooth on the label. So at least they stand behind it. At least they're correct in their description.
Yeah. If you look it up, it actually is, he is 100% invested in this, and he did actually find a distillery, a distinct one. And so it's a pretty interesting story. Yeah. So let's take, the childhood and things like that. But when you go to high school, I guess you had mentioned already, so I guess my thought was you were always big and built and strong, but you mentioned skinny kid. As high schoolers today, we obviously are buried in our phones. I mean, not me personally, but I have two 18-year-old sons and my daughter's 22. It's like coming up in that different age through high school. Even though you were skinny, I can imagine you were still a good-looking guy. So, and you talked about Christian morals and things like that. So was high school kind of easy, or was it a struggle? Because I know that high school can be the toughest 4 years of someone's life sometimes.
Yeah, high school sucked for me. I definitely can't, I was so ready to get out of there. And the reason I mean, we all have those good memories, we all have those bad memories, but the reason I say it sucked for me is just because where I was in Texas, at that time especially in West Texas, that's an area where, being different isn't always the best thing in the world. And we all know how kids are. They're relentless. They're merciless, right? So if you're different in any way, then you're definitely going to get a lot of attention, and not in the fun way. So so I was basically, long story short, I was part of a religion growing up. My mom was a part of that. Made me very different. So I couldn't do things that all the other kids were doing, like go out on a Friday night and do all these different things. And so being in Texas, that was, weird. So it definitely took me made me kind of like a social pariah, if you will. I didn't, so I wasn't able to, again, not able to do any of the sports. Just so I had a couple friends, but that was about it. And just very much did my own thing and play football on the weekends and in the street sort of thing. But I did not get into any aspect of high school the typical high school thing where, you have these fond memories from high school. It's like, oh, I remember that, like, captain of the football team or
Right.
prom king, or I didn't get into any of that at
Yeah.
all. I mean, I went to prom at the end of end of the day, of course, but that was pretty much it. And the day after I graduated high school, I was out of there, man. I couldn't wait. So yeah,
that's pretty interesting because what's funny. We were talking about struggles, and honestly, that is a struggle of itself because my boys, they're not worried about all that stuff like popularity and everything. And like you said, you go through high school and you feel like that's a struggle. I mean, honestly, like you said, that's like just not having to be able to be a part of something that you think everyone else is supposed to do is its own struggle, and it's right because you think you're supposed to be this person.
yeah. There's a lot of things. Again, it's looking back on it, and what I've done over the years is I've looked back on these, and I don't want to say hardships because they weren't hardships; they were just
Right.
inconveniences, almost, if you will, as you really look back on it. Because I still had a great childhood, so I don't, it was just, it was outside the typical
Exactly.
normalcy of what people expect you to have growing up in a place like West Texas. So, so I look back on that, and it's definitely it's like, okay, what did I learn out of that? What, how did that mold me into what I am today? And it was just, that was like the very start of almost like Legos, of building blocks to make that
Correct.
me become the person I am today. But yeah, I think definitely a part of it helped of not being popular, not being in the spotlight for any reason except for the negative, so to speak, from time to time. But yeah, I definitely think so. I never ever thought about being famous or in the spotlight. That was
Right.
never a goal or a drive or any sort of thought in my head.
That's awesome. Like I said, that to me is the sign of humility, right? You weren't striving for it; it just happened, and you absorbed it and took it on, and it's amazing. So I think before we get into the next question, because we have a good break right here before I know where the story is going to kind of probably go as far as the length, we should probably do another shot. So what's your next bottle that you have sitting there that you want to shot?
Well, I got them all here. So I guess we could just go from your right over. I'm guessing that's your right. So we got 4 Roses coming up next.
Yeah.
Well, you got the small batch. I have a single barrel. Where's my small batch?
That's fine if you don't have it. Hey, I've never had. Let's try both. It's 4 Roses.
Well, I mean, this one is. I thought. I mean, this one is definitely a fave. So I know
I'm gonna have to try. You're like, I don't care if it's single batch or small barrel. I don't care.
So 4 Roses. 4 Roses is definitely a favorite. I have. This is I usually have some sort of little cocktail every night, just as I call it, a little snort of whiskey. I just do a little bit of whiskey on a rock, and my 4 Roses single barrel, I go through those because I do enjoy them.
And to be honestly, I've not tried it before, like 2 weeks ago, and it is truly one of my favorites already. You're right; it is amazing. No matter what you go with. Here we go.
Cheers, buddy. No.
Have you ever shot it though?
No, that's just fantastic. It's lovely.
Like, I don't care if I shoot it, drink it. It's so good.
It just warms my body.
It does warm your body.
I love that one.
That's amazing.
That's a fave.
Yeah, and I've got the regular 4 Roses in this tonight, so it's a different. I have 2 bottles of 4 Roses myself. Yeah,
the regular 4 Roses, the 4 Roses, and that one that you have, the small batch.
Right.
Those are the ones that I'll do for an old fashioned. If I do go out, that's definitely one of the ones I'm always asking for if they have that for old fashioned.
Yeah, I make those quite a bit at home just because that's one of the go-tos. But so
I've got my cherries and bitters and everything right there as well. So
I don't doubt it. I love the fact that you are like a true. That's why I love having you on here. I've had a couple people that are like anti or whatever, but you are truly into whiskey and you know your whiskey, so I appreciate that. So. Sure. Let's go on after high school because we talked a little bit about that. But make it basically, in essence, again, I know a little bit about this, but I feel like people probably think you have always been into fitness. As soon as you graduated high school, I was a skinny kid. I joined the military. I started lifting. I gained 50 pounds in 6 months because I was in the Navy and I could eat and lift all the time. So mine was a little bit different. But you had mentioned that weightlifting and training wasn't really a thing for you. It was just a job. So explain what you mean by that.
Sure. So, getting into college level for me, I still wasn't into, I wasn't into fitness at all. I would work out a little bit. I lifted a little bit in the summers when I came out to California to visit my dad and my stepmom at the time. She was working in a gym here. And so I would, work out a little bit there, but I never was like, oh, I want to do this for a living. This is a good life or something like that. I just never any of that. When I went to college, I, especially the first semester, I went to Texas Tech for 3 years, and the first semester you have to live, or the first year really, you have to live in the dorms.
Oh,
So I went from living in a town of 7,000 people. Yeah, I came to LA every twice a year to see my dad, but I went from a town basically living in 7,000 people to college dorm life, booze, women. I never got into drugs or anything like that, but just man,
right.
I went batshit crazy. I had the best time ever. And school was not even on like the top five
Right.
of the list or top 10. It was like
So
going to
many
class.
things you could do. Right.
There were so many more fun things to do than going to class. So
Right.
yeah, I think my GPA that first semester was like a 1.8 or something like that.
Oh,
It's just
okay.
because I just didn't go. I graduated in top 10 in high school.
Right.
My class was around there, which is not hard when you have a very large class. But it was, yeah, like my first GPA, and then I got academic suspension. I was like, okay, I guess I should actually like go to class and stuff like that. So I brought my GPA back up, but I just didn't care because I didn't feel any of it. I wasn't tied to anything. So I changed my major every semester,
Right.
or at least every time I could. I was changing it. So I would start with like, I think I started with international business because I'm like, hey, that sounds fun. I could go travel the world. And then I
Yeah.
realized how much work actually that involved. And I was like, nah, I don't want to do that. And then I changed it to business administration, communications, journalism. I ended up, had I actually graduated, I would have left with a degree in general studies, which is like, Van Wilder leisure studies. You're not getting
Totally.
that.
Been a
So,
water 8 years in college.
right. Right. Seriously. I was leading the Van Wilder life for sure.
Oh, there you
Sure.
go.
And then, and I was having to work too. I had to, so I was working. So I was framing houses during the day, and then bartending and waiting tables, managing nightclub and stuff at night. You can bartend in Texas at 18. So I was bartending right off the bat, and I was waiting tables first thing I moved to bartender. Once I started bartending, man, I was like, I really didn't have any interest in school because I was watching Cocktail, the movie. I would take notes and I would bring an empty bottle home. I was spinning bottles. I was doing the
Oh,
flavor.
really? Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Oh, I did it all, man, and learned how to
That
blow fire with.
the Tom Cruise looks, you were set, bro.
Yeah, and but still weighed $150,
Right.
soaking wet. Yeah, so I was definitely super skinny guy. But and then smoking cigarettes, drinking, having a good old time, just having a time of my life. The fitness thing happened by chance because I needed a job. That's literally how it happened. Was at 19 years old, I was just tired of the Freeman houses, or West Texas heat was killer, and so a friend got me. I was like, hey, have you ever got a job over there at this local gym that she was working at? And she's like, actually, they need a front desk person, but it's the graveyard shift. I'm like, I don't care, I'll take it. And so my first gym job was the 2 a.m. to 10 a.m. shift at a gym, working the front desk, or as they said, I was the morning manager, which I'm like, that's just because nobody
Because
was
there's no
there.
one else there.
Exactly. So that's what it was. And I, what was cool about that and what that did is it set up so many things because I was the only person there. I was the only employee there for those hours. So I had to learn all the things that for every other position in terms of how to sell a membership, how to sell PT, fix basic fix of equipment if it broke and things like that, because there was nobody else there. So that really set me off on a this path. I didn't realize it because I knew so much. I learned so much so quickly about the gym, and being a people person and always able to talk to people and being pretty good at that, obviously with bartending and things like that.
Yeah.
I was selling memberships. I was doing well, and so that slowly started to morph into like getting it, then I became like their promotions guy. And because then I had already made so many contacts in Lubbock from bartending and things like that. So that became like their promotions person where
Oh, nice.
I would go, I had these I had my gym girls with the name of the gym on them. I would take them to like nightclubs and stuff to get leads. And it was just, I was the guy. Like I was, you know, so this at this point, I'm 20 years old. I'm not even 21 yet, and I'm still like, I'm getting into every bar, every nightclub I want. I know everybody by name. It was fun. I was having a great time and still smoking cigarettes out back because I would go sell gym memberships. So that was really, that started the whole thing.
Right.
Not into the health aspect of it at all, obviously.
Which again, you didn't know any, yeah, you were just sitting there thinking, this is just a job. It's fun. It's badass. I got these hot chicks doing like promotions for me. I'm, you know, I'm 20 years old going into bars.
Yeah.
And again, that kind of life happens, you know, and that is pretty freaking cool. But again, it sets you up for what's about to come, right?
Sure does. Yeah.
And what's funny, that set up for another shot.
It's, you know what? The transitions are great, man.
And by the way,
I do feel it. I think we got to save that one for the end, though, don't you think?
Okay. I'm cool with that. So let's go into the Maker's 46 that you recommended, by the way. I've not had Maker's Mark 46.
So the 46, now you've got do you have the regular 46 or do you have the cask strength?
I have Kentucky Bourbon Straight Whiskey Barrel Finish with 10 French Oak. So all I got was the Maker Moore's 46. I didn't know there was a different one.
So I didn't realize which one I had. So what's the proof on yours? Because this is where the difference happens.
94.
This is 111 proof.
Oh shit, that's definitely.
So write that one down for later because this one, and this hasn't even been opened yet. So
and it's called the Casket.
Casket is if you drink too many of them.
Right. Cask.
It's cask strength.
Yes.
And they're strong as hell. I thought I had a regular 46 too. The problem
is that's fine. I mean, honestly, it's the 46. It's all good. Yours is just stronger, and you're like 40 pounds heavier than I am, so you can handle it.
There we go. This has been sitting there for a while. That's why it was so damn hard to open.
This is the one I did not break into. I actually opened this fresh tonight just for this.
I think you're going to like this. The 46, it doesn't matter if it's the cask strength or not. Obviously, with the cask strength, it's
just stronger.
Hella strong. But this is a very smooth. Yeah, but the Maker's Mark, I've always enjoyed these. Yeah. So here's to high proof alcohol right here.
There you go.
Take another one. Yeah. Still smooth though.
It is actually smooth. I mean, that's actually like took me. I was trying to enjoy that because I never had it, so I took a second to actually realize how good that was. That was actually extremely good.
Right? Yeah. So that one would be really good in an old fashioned as well.
Right.
Yeah.
And as you can see, Joel has a cool person that's like bringing him stuff. I'm not.
My wife is bringing me another water. Just so
she's like, my wife goes, "Hey, you're gonna be smushed after this." Your wife's like, "Hey, I need you to focus after this." Right?
Yeah, right. That's
I love it. That's why good wives are amazing. So let's go into the transition a little bit about the fact that you had taken yourself through high school, you had gone to the gym thing. So how did you actually, I guess after that point, when did you decide to get away from that gym and how did it spin off and, kind of take us into like the 20s, early 20s?
Yeah. So at that point, I can't remember too much alcohol to think back that far between now. But so I was at Tech for 3 years, and again, just not feeling it, not really sure what I was going to do with it.
Did you say Tech?
What's that?
Did you say Tech?
Yeah, Texas Tech.
Oh, I'm sorry, college. I thought you meant technology. I was like, holy shit!
Texas Tech. So, so during that time, as a a lot of these stories go, I met a girl, and she was from Washington State, and was down there staying with her grandma or something like that for a while. And it literally became, at that point, I was ready to get out of Texas. I was ready to get out of West Texas, and I wasn't sure. I wasn't feeling it. I didn't know what I was going to do. I didn't see myself graduating Texas Tech with anything useful. And yeah, you know, and she wanted to move back to Washington. So I was like, sure. So that's what took me to Washington State. At 21, 22 years old, moved up to Washington State, just outside of Seattle and Olympia, the capital of Washington. And we got up there, and she was pretty much, just kidding. Thanks for the ride. So that dissipated really, really quickly. And all of a sudden I realized, I was like, okay, now here I am at 22, knew nobody up there. And I wasn't even working the gym. I had gotten a job like with her uncle back framing houses again, because I had that skill set. And then was working at a lumber yard, Lincoln Creek Lumber. I was actually enjoying that though, because, you know, we were like power slide forklifts around the corners and load trucks and things like that. So I had a good time with the job. Again, you know, very meaningless job. Right. And I say meaningless because you're fulfilling it, but it was just like, this was not a career for me. This was not like something, it was just a job. So I don't want, you know, downplay any of the jobs I've had, because there's people that do them and they're very, very good at their job. So, but I was like, I could either gone back to Texas. My mom wanted me to come back to Texas. My family in California said, hey, come back to California. I was like, no, I'm going to stick it out. I'm going to see what happens. And it was really my first, because I had moved myself from high school to college by myself. Didn't have anybody. So I was very independent from day one with that. And then when I moved up to Washington, it was kind of the same thing. You know, and at one point stayed in a extended stay hotel for 2 weeks because I didn't have a place to live. So, you know, I got kind of used to having to do things the hard way and make my way the hard way. It was just, you know, and like, we've all been broke, but I was broke. Oh, absolutely. You know, but once I got into that, and then once she and I split up, then I was like, all right, I was like, I'm not going to be working at the lumber yard. I'm not going to be, you know, framing houses the rest of my life. I was like, I'm good at the gym stuff. Right. So I found a job at a gym. It was a small gym there, but started with that and was a gym manager with them, and had just taken over new ownership. And that job right there, working at that gym, was what really started the snowball, if you will, of where I am now, because I started meeting people. I started taking group exercise classes. I became a group exercise instructor, teaching classes, Les Mills classes, body pump, body combat, all those programs, through friends, and hosting trainings there. I met some of the international trainers for Les Mills. So then I made those connections, and it really that's where it really started to pick up and snowball. And I still didn't know if I saw it as a career.
Right, you didn't know. You were just doing the steps, but you didn't realize it was going to lead to something.
No, because I didn't know what that was. And what I would do is I would always take a job thinking, okay, this is what I want to do, or I'm going to like this. And then the only way to find out if you like it or not is to do it. Right. So that's pretty much what would happen is, I thought when I started teaching group exercise classes that I wanted to become a Les Mills trainer and fly around the world and train instructors. And so I went through the process to become a trainer for them, passed, and started going through the whole process, and you have to do a couple trainings here and there. And I did it. I was like, I don't want to do this. I don't like it. So it was like, I loved that world. I loved being a part of that world. I just didn't want to fly around and always be on the road to do it.
How old were you? Hold on. How old were you at the time? Because now you're going from a gym person to now being a Les Mills, flying around the world. Like,
I'm still working at that gym.
Okay.
Yeah. Though this is secondary. I'm still 23, 24 years old. So this all happened very quickly in terms of teaching classes and getting into it. But it was just making those connections. And the point of all that was I was meeting people. Right. And I was making connections and building relationships with people that I still have today, 15 years later. Jericho McMatthews is one of them. She and I did Court of Force together. And so, she had just become a trainer, and she had just started dating Yusuf Matthews, who is now her husband. And they had just started dating it. And then he was my trainer at Les Mills boot camp to become a trainer. So like, we all go way back over the years. So it was all about building those relationships and friendships. And that's over those years. And so it was around that time that I was like, okay, maybe I should stop smoking. Because I was still, I would teach a group.
I thought I was like back in Texas. You were still smoking.
No. I was still like, I would teach a group X class and then go back to the house and have a cigarette. Like I didn't care. You know how you are in your early 20s.
You're also 23. Yeah, you're like whatever, right? Yeah.
You're invincible, man. We would party all night, and I would have my drink at the time was a Jack and Coke. That like not Diet Coke, regular Coke. Like
oh God, you definitely were young.
Yeah, we weren't scared of calories, and so I would drink. And there were mornings where I'd be like, we party all night long, and I would realize I'd have the drink in my hand, and I'd be like, oh, I gotta go teach, and I would just put the drink down and go teach a class, just hammered. So
I love it. No, it's real. It's real because that's actually
I taught very hammered and I taught very hungover. So, but I finally realized I was like, okay, from the smoking, I just quit one day. I was very lucky. I didn't have to go through a long.
The patch or some weird.
No, I didn't do it. And I just stopped. And then, for a few years, it'd always be like, oh, I only smoke when I drink, or, oh, I only smoke when I get drunk, that whole thing. And then finally, mid-20s, late 20s, something like that, I was like, I'm good. And now it's like, now I can never imagine even having one. So I definitely.
I love it because smoking is tough. And I get what you're saying. Like my mom, who's 71 now, still smokes. And it's like you were like smart enough to be like, hey man, I'm done, so she's been on the show. So
I tell you what though, if I live to like 90 and I'm somewhat healthy at 90, at that point, I'm like, I'm going right back to it because I don't care. Like I've made it that long. And so I always think about the guy. I always think about the dad from.
I miss smoking that much. We're at 90. I don't give a shit. I'm gonna smoke.
Right, but it's like the dad from Grumpy Old Men, the old guy where he's smoking, he's drinking, and he's like, I'm 98 years old. I don't care. Like
right. And if you made it that far, then you get your years back, right? They always say those years take. But at 98, you might as well just finish it off.
I'm gonna do everything. I don't care.
You're gonna have the best whiskey ever. Well, speaking of the best whiskey ever, we have to move on to the next shot.
All right. So
we're going to go with the 1792, which you said earlier that you have not had that yet.
I have not.
And I have not either.
So this is a freshie for both.
It's a first for both. And to be honest, my daughter works at Bevmo, so when I went in there to just kind of see what you and I could collaborate on, shout out to Bevmo. I'm sure there's places with more selection, but she works there, so it's easy to go there and just check it out. So 1792, again, honestly, so we have 4 Kentuckys, by the way, and I didn't even realize that. 1 Irish and 1 Tennessee, right? So
good little selection.
We're very Southern, if you know what I'm saying, right? Like, obviously, we're into the Southern Kentucky and Tennessee. So cheers. Here we go.
Cheers. That's stronger than I was expecting.
It's a 94 too, I think. Oh, it's only yeah. 93.7, whatever, 94.
It's brash and bold. It's balanced.
It was definitely, that's a good description. I didn't even see that.
Yeah, it definitely was not as, I was expecting it to be a little bit more smooth.
Right.
But it's still good.
No, it is good.
I think that one would be good. I mean, if you put that on a rock, that would be good. It'll mellow it out just a little. That's why I always like to do. I've got the big ice cubes, a lot of big
ice cubes. Get the big circles, and you just give it about 2-3 minutes, and it melts in there pretty good.
Yeah.
Now you mentioned earlier that you go to a special. Is it a liquor store, or how's that work?
So we got Bevmo here as well, but we've got a place called Mission Spirits down the street. So shout out to Mission because they've got everything, and they've found me stuff that I didn't think that I could even get in the States. Like I love whiskey's obviously my thing, but I also love really good extra añejo tequilas because
I saw your post like a week or so ago, and I was like, oh, that's tequila,
Yeah, because they're aged longer. So I've got a tequila called Adictivo that
was it.
You can almost, I rarely have ever found it here in the States. And every time we go down to Mexico, we were always buying it. And then it turns out that my guys have it right down the street, which is dangerous because I always make sure I have some. So, but yeah, so 1792 is definitely not my favorite, but it's not that bad. It's
not that bad, yeah. So
I would have it again.
Go ahead. What's that?
I think I would have it, but Actually, it might not be bad in an old fashioned, to be honest.
But you just got to finish it at this point, right? I mean, you have to drink it at some point. You just
I'm gonna finish it. I'm gonna finish it, but I have to figure out how I'm gonna finish it.